All right, everybody. Um, I just want to say thank you for showing up. Um, before we get started, I'm just going over some quick Zoom rules. So throughout this webinar, you'll be able to ask any questions you want. So if there's a question that pops in your head while I'm going through the slideshow, please drop it in the chat, and at the end, I'll answer them. If you feel like I'm talking too fast or if you need me to slow down, just, just like say something in the chat box and I will be sure to slow down. But I'm going to continue. And this is recorded, by the way. All right. So thank you for coming to our webinar tonight on how to navigate the college application process. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. Ooh, let me see how I can move forward. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna just talk a bit about myself. My name is Nancy Brito, and I'm the post-secondary manager at Summer Search. I've been here for about 5 years and have overseen the post-sec access department for about the last 2. And the other name I have on here is Julian Perez. He is not here right now, but I wanted to add him on here because he will be starting next week and will be working with the majority of our senior class. So if you are from the Bronx or Brooklyn, you will most likely be working with Julian. And so for today's agenda, I'm just going to quickly go over where our students in the past have gone before, the impact COVID has had on the college application process, talk a bit about the college application process itself, and briefly touch on financial aid and alternative pathways, and give some time to talk about next steps that you all should take as students, and to answer your questions. First things first, where do our students go? So for the class of 2020, as you can see, the majority of our students attended college, with most of them going to either CUNY or SUNY in New York. Those who attend private school, the majority of them go to school in New York, and I want to say almost all go to school in the Northeast. These stats are very similar to the other stats in the past, but I will say for the class of 2020 that more students are thinking about alternative pathways, and I definitely foresee that going on in the future. All right, so it's really hard to talk about the college application process without talking about the impacts of COVID. COVID has impacted the college application process in a lot of ways, but I'm just talking about the two big ways that it has impacted the application process. So one, the majority of colleges are SAT optional. And so what that means is colleges are not asking for your SAT scores. That does not mean that you cannot take the SAT. There are still SAT tests available. And I believe some schools are offering it as well, but for the most part, if you want to sign up for the SAT, make sure you do it a couple of weeks right before the test starts, because there is very limited seating. The second thing is all campus tours and information sessions are virtual, and I know for a lot of our students this is really difficult because part of the process is visiting your schools in person, but I really encourage all students to take advantage of the virtual opportunities. I think that it is really awesome that so many schools are offering one-on-one chats with college admissions. With different counselors and current students, and I really encourage students to move forward with those opportunities. Next, I'm just going to briefly go over the college application timeline. There is a lot on this on this presentation. There's a lot on the screen right now, but I'm just going to talk about what students should be doing right now. And so the first thing is finalizing your college list, right? So at this time, you should be just like, you should know where you're going to apply to, or you have a good idea of where you're going to apply to. And so second is you should be starting your primary applications. Most of our students apply to CUNY and SUNY and Common Application. Start going on your application portals, get to know them, because you will be in them for the whole semester. Last but not least, you should have started your college essay, and if you haven't, that's okay. But I want to really encourage you all to move forward with that. Now, the earlier you do all of these steps, the easier your semester will be. You don't want to cram this all in December. And I just want to let everyone know that I will be sending this presentation out to the whole senior class, so don't feel like you have to rush and like write all of this down. So what does the college application actually consist of? The college application process consists of a lot of things. One, your primary application. So your name, your birthday, what schools you want to apply to, what schools you attend. Next is your college essay. So as you all know, there's that main college essay that schools ask for, but there are also schools that ask for additional essays. So it's really important to start your primary application, put down the schools that you might apply to see what they're asking of you. You'll also have a space to talk about your senior year classes and your extracurricular activities, as well as a place to put in basic stuff about your financial aid information. So they might ask how much money your family makes per year. Next is the interview. So some schools give an optional choice for students to do the interview process. And so it's just usually talking to one counselor. And so if your school is offering that, I would encourage you to move forward with it. So after that is your recommendations. You need 2 recommendations. One will be from your school counselor, and I'm going to encourage you all to get those letters as soon as possible, or ask your teachers as soon as possible, and give them a month notice so they have time to write it all down. Your teachers are busy, your counselors are busy. Give them the time to actually write it. Last but not least is your high school transcript. So you are not responsible for sending those out, your high school is, but that's a very important part of the application process. If the schools do not receive the high school transcript, they will not look at your application. All right. So one of the main questions I get is, how many schools should I apply to? Our students typically apply to 3 different types of schools, or 3 different types of application: the CUNY application, the SUNY application, as well as the Common application. And I just want to mention that you can apply to SUNYs on the Common application. It does not matter which one you do, but for this webinar, I'm going to talk about all 3. So for CUNY, I recommend applying up to 6 schools. Between 4 to 6 schools, you can apply up to 6. And I know some students feel like they don't have to apply to CUNY because they are planning to not attend, but I really encourage you to apply, because as we've seen from this year, you literally never know what can happen. The CUNY application is super easy, could take you about probably 3 hours max. Yeah, so moving forward, we have the SUNY application. If you are eligible for the EOP program, which I'll talk about in the next slide, you can apply up to 7 schools for free. If you are not eligible for EOP, I recommend applying up to 4 schools because each application is $50 each. And last but not least, the common application, which is typically consists of private schools. I recommend no more than 10. But with all these applications, these schools, it's really up to the student. If you are only interested in 5 private schools, only apply to 5. If you feel like applying to 5 schools would be too much for you and will give you a lot of anxiety and overwhelm you, don't apply to 5. It's okay. So just know what feels good for you. All right, so support programs. I just mentioned the EOP program, which is part of the SUNY schools. The SUNY schools are public schools, typically in upstate New York. The EOP program is very similar to the HEOP program, which is in select private New York State schools, which is sort of similar to CUNY, their SEEK and ASAP program. So these programs are support programs for students. They all provide some sort of financial support, whether it be through a Metro card or for your tuition. The main difference is that HEOP schools provide a lot more financial support than EOP schools. And with all of these programs, you'll get 1 extra advisor, and most likely we'll do a summer program. So to be eligible for these support programs, you have to meet 2 criteria, financial and academic. For financial, you have to lie between, so you have to meet these requirements on this side on here. So for example, if you are part of a family of 4 and your parents make less than $48,000 a year, then you are eligible. If you're a family of 4 and make $54,000 a year, you are not eligible. The second piece to that is the academic requirement. So more so for SUNY, the highest GPA average they have on their freshman profile is about a 92, 93. So if your grades are above a 93 GPA, you will not be eligible for EOP, even if you are low income. For the private New York State schools, for the HEOP program, that typically isn't a problem because most schools, their academic ranges are a lot higher. All right, so before I move on to other parts of the application, I just want to talk about common myths that I hear from students. The first big one is I should not apply for private school because it's too expensive. And so first, it is true that the ticket price to private schools are a lot more expensive than public schools, but private schools also have the extra funding to provide aid for students. And from what I've seen, more than not, private schools are, you're able to pay for private schools more so than public schools. But it's definitely not all private schools though. The second thing I hear is going to SUNY is the cheapest option, especially as an EOP student. So while the EOP program does provide support financially, it does not provide a lot. On average, I've seen that EOP provides about $2,000 for students, and unfortunately, I see a spelling error. So, sorry, that just like cut me off. So more students typically have to owe more to SUNY even as an EOP student. There's just not funding for all the students to cover tuition and dorming. And if you are an EOP student, you are definitely taking out $5,500 in federal loans. Versus for the HEOP program, there's a chance that you might not do that depending on the school. Third, I know I'm going away, so I don't have to apply to CUNY. I talked about this already, but apply to CUNY. It's an easy application. You don't know what will happen. It's just safety. Last, I should avoid taking out loans at all costs. So I understand that right now there's a lot of talk about student loans and how horrible they are for a lot of people. And I'm here to say that while loans are loans, it depends, right? So if your school is asking you to take out $20,000 in private loans, that is not the best way. That's not a good choice to take out the loans. But if your school is saying that you have to take out 5,500 federal loans, then that is not a bad choice whatsoever, because they will offer you a lot more protection than private loans. The reality is that if you want to buy a house, if you want to buy a car, if you want to go to school, sometimes you have to take out a loan, and that's okay. It's really about how much are you taking out and who are you taking out from. Next, financial aid. So I'm not going to really talk about this too much because I'm going to do a different workshop in the future. But I just want to quickly talk about these different applications. The FAFSA application is for federal aid. The application opens tomorrow, October 1st. And you're going to need your parents' 1040 tax form. And you're going to go on and apply. So the max that a student can get is $6,345. And so you would receive that if your family is considered low income. Next, we have the TAP application, which is for New York State aid. So you will receive the TAP application, which will give you the maximum of $5,145. You will have this aid if you are a New York State resident, which all of you are, and if you attend school in New York State. So if you go to school in Pennsylvania, you will not get this TAP award. Last but not least, we have the CSS profile. This application is for select private schools. So all of you might not fill this out, but if you do, you'll be given notice. And so what this is a very detailed financial application. All right, next is alternative pathways. So I know this webinar is about the college application process, but I do want to mention different pathways outside of college. More than not, we've seen that students are going in this direction. And so if you're wondering if you should do a different pathway, there are options. So we have trade programs where you can learn how to weld, be a hairstylist, coding. We have a job training program where you can learn coding if you want. You can be a graphic designer, different options. And then we have the military. So a few of our students do that after high school. How do you know if you should do this? Well, one, you prefer hands-on learning. If you've had a hard time with the school structure now, pre-COVID, and if you're just like, you'd rather learn how to work with your hands, this might be a good option for you. Or two, you want to explore different fields after high school and before college. So a lot of people think that if you don't go to college right after high school, that like you can't go ever again, or like that's it, but that's not true. You can do a 1-year job training program and learn how to code and then realize you actually want to be a teacher and go to college the next year. Or you can serve for 4 years in the Air Force, and if you decide to go back to college after that, you can. So there's definitely different options. And so I'm also going to send out a list of different links and programs outside of college as well. This is just like what I quickly mentioned. There are just so many different options for those who want to do other pathways outside of college. And here are just a few. All right, so what should you do next? So as a summer searcher, what you should do is send your college list to your mentor. And if you don't have a college list, send where you think you might apply to, or just ask if you need help with creating one. Second, you're going to get an email next week from your post-secondary mentor, which is either Julian or myself. And so after that, please set up a time to meet with us, which you will see in that email. And for the college application process, like I said earlier, start your primary applications, start your college essay, and attend virtual tours. I know it's probably really awkward and strange, but take advantage of it. Schools do look at if you attend these events. So please do so. And while I know it might be hard for some of you, I think I'm really pushing you all to meet with a counselor one-on-one. That's a really good way to get to know the school and have them to get to know you. And that's it for my presentation. I know it's pretty short, and I'm going to see if there are any questions. All right, y'all. There are 3 of you in here. Do any of you have any questions that you want to put in the chat? And if not, that's totally okay. And we can end this. Thanks, Lisette. All right, so if there's no questions, then I'm going to end this. Great, I'm glad. Thanks, Alexandra. Please respond to your post-secondary mentor when they send you the email, which will be next week. So thank you all for coming. Have a really great night, and I'll talk to you soon.